Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at someone, maybe just a quick glance at their jacket or the mud on their shoes, and you instantly start kind of building a story about them?
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a really basic human thing to do, right?
Yeah, that intuitive leap,
Yeah.
from just seeing something to deciding what it means.
It's incredibly natural, and it ties right into that classic quote. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data.
Right.
But the tricky part is, our brains want to leap to those theories. Often way before we've gathered enough info, or worse, we start twisting the info we do get to fit some theory we already jumped to.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about, applying that principle, that need for data, specifically to observing people.
Hmm.
I mean, we spend so much of our lives interacting with others.
This seems super relevant.
Yeah, getting better at understanding what we're actually seeing feels like, I don't know, a vital skill.
It really does. But it's surprisingly hard to do well consistently anyway. Our intuition is fast, sure, but like the source material we're looking at today highlights, it can send us off track pretty quickly.
Or just leave you feeling kind of swamped by all the little details a person presents.
Mm-hmm. Information overload.
So the mission today is really to dig into the system that the source proposes. See how it helps you get past those quick, maybe flawed gut reactions.
And observe people more effectively, more accurately, especially now in our world.
It's about swapping out that intuitive shortcut for something more deliberate.
A more structured approach, yeah. One that actually helps you see more in the first place.
Okay, speaking of shortcuts, let's think about the past for a sec. The source brings up Sherlock Holmes, right? His famous method looking at, like, a woman's sleeve hem or a man's trouser knee.
Uh-huh.
Why did that work so well for him back in 19th century London?
Well, it was super efficient then because society was just, well, structured very differently. You had all these really common physical jobs, manual labor, for instance, where men would actually spend time kneeling. So yeah, that left clear marks on trouser knees.
Okay, makes sense.
And women were often doing domestic tasks, sewing, cleaning stuff that would affect, say, their sleeve hems. These were high probability clues based on the common activities and, frankly, the very rigid gender roles of the time.
So he wasn't just making wild guesses. He was using data points that were, like, statistically very likely to mean something specific back then.
Exactly. But you fast forward to today, the 21st century, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Right, automation changed jobs, gender
Yeah.
roles are way less fixed, dual income households are normal.
Uh-huh. Men and women's daily lives, their work lives, they've become much more similar in a lot of ways.
Which means those old clues, a worn knee, a marked hem, they just aren't the reliable shortcuts they used to be.
Definitely not. And the source points out a big problem with how we naturally tend to observe people now.
Which,
We tend to see a detail or two, quickly cook up a theory about that specific detail, then look at something else, make another little theory. We're sort of theorizing on the fly.
theorizing as we go. Yeah, I can see that.
And that's where the trouble starts. Our conscious attention, our short-term memory. It's pretty limited, right? We can only juggle maybe 7 things effectively at once.
Okay.
So this work-as-you-go method feels efficient. It breaks down this complex person into little bite-sized chunks that fit our mental limits.
But what's the downside?
Well, it's twofold, really. First, if the few things you group together don't actually relate, you've just contaminated your little mini theory with noise.
Right, irrelevant stuff.
Or even worse, maybe there are crucial connections between different observations, but you've already mentally filed them away into separate theory boxes. You completely missed the link.
Because you already decided what story each bit belonged to before you even saw the whole picture.
Exactly. It's like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle by making tiny little scenes in different corners before you've even dumped all the pieces out.
You might force pieces together that don't fit or miss, that a piece over here connects way over there.
Precisely. That intuitive system loves speed, but it sacrifices accuracy. And that gut feeling, that intuition, the source keeps reminding us it can just be plain wrong.
And doesn't that early theorizing just fuel confirmation bias?
Yeah.
Like if I decide from someone's shoes they're, say, a construction worker,
Mm-hmm.
then my brain starts looking for other things that fit that idea, right? And maybe ignoring things that don't fit.
Absolutely. You stop being objective. You stop just gathering data. You become a lawyer arguing for the theory you already believe in
Seeing what you expect to see.
instead of what's actually there. Yeah.
And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking everything we see about someone must all connect.
Right.
Like it all points to one big truth about them.
But the source argues against that. People aren't that simple usually.
We're not one-dimensional.
Not at all. We have different parts of our lives, work, hobbies, family, personal habits. An observation might tell you something about one area, but nothing about another.
Okay, let's make this concrete. That example from the source, you meet a guy in a grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
and you notice a few specific things. He's got weak glue on his fingertips.
Okay.
He smells like men's deodorant, but also faintly of women's perfume.
Right.
He's wearing a wedding ring, left hand.
Got it.
And also, he just comes across as really charismatic, good at chatting.
Okay, so 4 distinct observations. Now, the intuitive brain might try to weave those all together immediately, maybe into some kind of drama.
Yeah, you could imagine stories.
But if we just hold off on the storytelling for a minute and just look at the data.
All right. The weak glue. The source suggests that's probably not like super glue for heavy repairs.
Right. Weak glue often means smaller, maybe more delicate work.
Like model building or crafts, something like that. A hobby.
Could be. So that clue points towards hobbies or personal activities.
Okay. Then the deodorant plus the perfume smell plus the wedding ring.
That combination suggests he was recently close to a woman wearing perfume, and the ring strongly implies he's married.
So that cluster of data relates to his interpersonal relationships.
Exactly.
And the charisma, the smooth conversation skills.
The source connects that to maybe a job that involves dealing with people, persuading them. The example used was selling cars, right?
Yeah. So that suggests something about his profession or work style.
And what's powerful here is seeing how these pieces point to different aspects of his life.
The glue doesn't necessarily connect to the perfume, which doesn't necessarily connect to the sales skills.
Right. They might eventually, but you can't assume they do from the start. They could just be telling you about his hobby, his marriage, and his job separately. You need to see all the pieces first.
Before you try sorting them and seeing which ones actually link up, avoiding that trap of assuming the first few dots tell the whole story.
Or assuming everything must link to one single conclusion.
Okay, so if the goal is get all the data before theorizing, and our intuition messes that up, what's the actual system the source suggests? How do we do this visual observation in a structured way?
It's a system really designed for today, breaking down the visual scan into sections of the person.
Sections.
Yeah. The idea is that certain areas tend to hold different kinds of data, but the system forces you to collect it all before you try connecting things across those sections.
Okay, walk me through it. Where does this structured scan begin?
It starts at the bottom,
Yeah.
the feet, specifically the shoes.
Shoes. Why shoes first?
Well, the source makes a great point. Shoes carry a ton of information. Think about it. They rarely get washed compared to clothes.
True.
So they accumulate wear patterns, dirt, mud, scuffs, all telling a story about where someone walks, what surfaces they encounter, even how they walk. Worn heels, specific types of dirt, maybe grass stains.
That makes a lot of sense. They absorb the environment. Okay, so feet first. Then where?
Then you move up to the knees. Now, okay, marks here aren't as common or maybe as revealing as in Holmes's day.
Right, less kneeling in general, maybe.
Probably, but they can still be really telling when something is there. The source gives examples like dried bits of cereal, maybe a parent kneeling to feed a kid, or grease stains, suggesting a mechanic or someone working with machinery. You're looking for anything unusual.
Got it. Feet, then knees. What's next? Hands.
Exactly. The hands. Our hands do so much, they interact with everything. So loads of potential data here.
But maybe more recent data, because we watch our hands.
Often, yes. So you look at the obvious stuff cuts, calluses, skin texture, rough or smooth, but also check under the fingernails. Dirt or specific substances can linger there.
Ah, good point.
And jewelry on the hands, rings, watches, can offer longer-term clues too. The source does mention touch, like a handshake, adds more data, but says it's kind of a separate thing from just visual observation.
Okay. Hands covered.
Airing one, like jackets often don't get washed frequently.
So they hold on to data longer.
Right. The source suggests looking particularly at the base of the sleeves near the cuffs, you might see wear or substances there related to hand activity that you missed on the hands themselves.
Interesting.
And then just scan the rest of the jacket, stains, tears, maybe odd bits of lint or hair, anything that seems out of place.
Okay, so
Yeah.
feet, knees, hands, jacket. Are we finally getting to the head?
We are. Shoulders up is the next zone. This covers the neck area. First, look for things like tan lines, maybe marks from necklaces.
Uh-huh.
Then the face itself. Complexion, are the sunburned? Pale, is their skin oily? Shaving habits are often visible. Hairstyle, hair color, eye color. And just their overall expression or countenance. Lots of info about personal habits, maybe health, environment.
So that covers all the specific body sections? Is that it?
Almost. There's one final step, the final scan.
What's that involve?
This is where you step back mentally and take in the bigger picture. Their overall clothing style, formal, casual, practical, trendy, the colors they chose, the general fit and condition of all their clothes together. And also their physical presence, height, build, posture. How do they carry themselves? This gives context and can sometimes help tie together observations from the other sections.
So the whole system is like a visual checklist.
Yeah.
Feet, knees, hands, jacket, shoulders up covering neck and face, and then a final scan for the overall impression.
That's the structure. Yes.
And the absolute key rule is you go through all of that, just gathering the raw data
collecting observations.
before you start trying to figure out what it all means or how piece A connects to piece B.
Exactly. Collect the entire data set first. Don't interpret as you go.
It sounds, well, a bit mechanical maybe, or slow, especially at first. Like you have to consciously stop yourself from jumping ahead.
It probably does feel counterintuitive initially. Our brains want to make those quick connections.
Yeah.
The source acknowledges that. It says it might feel clunky, but it also suggests that with practice, maybe just a few weeks of consciously doing it, this structured scan gets much faster. It becomes more like second nature.
The initial awkwardness fades as you basically train your eyes and your brain to follow the pattern.
Right. You get efficient at it.
And the payoff seems clear. By forcing yourself to get that more complete picture before analyzing, you sidestep those traps we talked about, jumping to conclusions too early, confirmation bias.
You end up working with a richer, more objective set of observations when you finally do start the analysis phase.
Which should make the actual deduction part, figuring out what the data means, how things connect, much more reliable.
Yeah, you're not trying to build a whole house from just, a couple of bricks you found first and assumed told the whole story.
So, thinking about you, the listener, how could using a system like this actually change how you observe people day to day? Could it help you see beyond just first impressions?
Build a more nuanced, maybe more accurate understanding.
It definitely challenges you to be a more active, more deliberate observer, doesn't it?
It does, and it makes you think. The source focused heavily on visual information, right? I mentioned touch briefly. So a final thought to maybe mull over. What other senses could potentially give us valuable data when we're observing a person? Smell came up in the example. Could hearing or other things fit into a system like this somehow? How might they add to the picture?